On today's Browns film breakdown, we are going to discuss quickly Todd Monken's time out in front of the media at the Combine in Indy, which was filled with the usual slapstick humor and really insightful stuff that I think he brings a different approach to those conversations than the previous head coach. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about some Browns who are set to make a little bit more money on the rookie pay scale through performance escalators, and I'll lay those out for you as a part of today's show. And then some time with Jared Mueller, who does great work during the Combine, gathering some sourced information and providing insights while there. It's a jam-packed show, a great show here on your Thursday edition of Browns Film Breakdown. Let's get started right now. What's up, guys? Thanks for being here. Welcome into today's show. Happy to have you. We have plenty of good information for you throughout the episode. It is the Combine's sort of lull is ending, where you get a lot of the GM coach talk stuff. You got a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors with every position group arriving, a lot of private interviews, a lot of private talks, some good information coming out on which teams spent time with who, obviously, right? So that's all coming out and about. There's a lot of connective tissue on rumors and names, and especially the Browns quarterback situation. So there's really some fun media hype that happens during the early stages of the Combine. Now you get the players on the field starting today through the 2nd of March. So it's going to be very busy with getting testing data information. And we'll find out some guys like CJ Allen and Sonny Styles of the first group up to run and test as the linebackers. Those guys, I think, announced they won't run the 40. Some guys won't run some of those important drills. We'll do on-field skill drills, but won't necessarily test. They want to do that in their home environment. That's fine. It's whatever. As long as we get some data on those guys throughout the process, it's fine. We have not had much of a media circus around any sort of particular players that have been there. So that's always good. Todd Monken, like I said earlier, made his way around the circuit. I mean, a bunch of different people, Ian Rappaport, a whole bunch of spots, like Rich Eisen pulled him to this. Like, there's just, you're the new head coach of the Browns. You got a lot of different places, different tables in media row to go sit, right? So he made his rounds, and a lot of funny stuff comes out. He talked about his time as a part of the Ravens staff. You get a certain allotment of money to buy some Nike gear, and he had $500 left in there that he wanted to use before his eventual, parting of ways with the franchise. And he kind of cashed that in to buy a Nike hat and a Jordan sweatshirt that he wore there today. Just a very different, good old boy nature about him, while also being really football intelligent. That is, I would say, refreshing to some people to hear sort of how he goes about talking about players and about parts of the team, things like that. I mean, he spent time talking about a lot of the questions about quarterback, right? You're going to get that. Shedeur, I think he referenced some elite playmaking skills that have been to display in college. He flashed some of those last year. And then he talked a little bit about Deshaun Watson too, and what Deshaun Watson has done, and put respect on what Deshaun did back in 2020, while also ultimately recognizing this is a very open competition that hasn't really even defined itself as a competition yet, because I think there's some decisions to be made via both the upcoming free agency period, the trade opportunities, and obviously the draft as Ty Simpson buzz grows, and we're hearing more about kind of the quarterbacks behind them. Even Drew Aller, you're going to hear reference here in a little bit that might make your eyebrows raise. But again, like, they don't want this to be the thing to take away is, at least to me, he talked about the idea that we don't want it to be a training camp competition. Like, there would be preferentially to have this sort of settled through OTAs and mini camp to give the starter the majority of the time, obviously, to get ready for the year, right? New coach on that side of the football, new structure, every rep matters. And the idea here is they can't guarantee that anybody's going to be having this job decided by training camp. They just don't want to go through that same process during training camp. And I thought that stood out, right? Obviously so many decisions to be made, things to be discussed and analyzed and worked through. And, they'll get there, but the hope is that they're not doing what they did last year, where 3 quarterbacks are getting significant amount of time. They're doing like side sessions and hungry dog, kind of nonsense they were doing last year. Like, that's just not normal NFL operation. You define who your quarterback is and you go. There's not that many open competitions in the NFL. These things work themselves out. I don't think they want to live in that world again, while recognizing they also can't promise anything. So they have to do right by that situation to keep it open-ended. But I do think they want to settle in. So, keep your eyes up for that. And that's what I really want to talk about with Jared today, which we'll get to in a little bit, is the idea around what buzz you're hearing, how committed are they to this quarterback, that quarterback. There's going to be in the next 60 days going to clear itself up really well, but a lot of preconceived notions that go around right now that are tied to what people believe. And you can't even stretch yourself to think, oh, they could be interested in Ty Simpson. Like, Dane Brugler referencing him as like he had a chance to be the number one quarterback before his injury. There's a lot of that's going to happen. A lot of smoke screens. It happens all the time. And this is when the real stuff starts to kick in. I think you start to get real opinion that starts to formulate. Whereas instead of, a month ago, you're putting projections around some guys at the top of the draft, and you start to see guys fall. It's just the nature of it as you get more information about both the teams, get more information. That information starts to leak a little bit, and then all of a sudden it starts to be reflected in bigger draft boards and mock drafts from those who cover it on a pretty big scale. So you pay attention to that stuff, right? So there you go. Another thing I wanted to hit on, but before we get to that, actually, I want to remind you the best way to support Browns Film Breakdown. That's obviously by just joining the site. If you're a huge supporter of this, you love the shows, whether audio or on YouTube or wherever you're finding these, or you just see it in your email and you're getting a free tidbit of the podcast all the time, join us, unlock it, support us that way. $10 a month. Have some great opportunities ahead of free agency during the draft to get you guys into our orbit. And if you're with us, you're one of the loyal supporters. First of all, I appreciate you, but also tell somebody you know about Browns Film Breakdown. Give a gift, give a referral. Ultimately gets you some free credits, some free months with us. I think the community is fantastic, and I think we're going to continue to do not just the shallow stuff a lot of other places do. I think that you find that out there. A lot of people trying to cover this sort of a mile wide. We try to go as penetrating as we can with the film, give you more analysis, make you a smarter fan, elevate your fandom, as we say. But if you are just checking us out on YouTube, subscribing to that, giving us the thumbs up, giving us that notification turned on so you know when we drop a video, appreciate that, obviously. Following us on all the social platforms, Instagram, TikTok, obviously, we would greatly appreciate that as we drop some content exclusively over there for those folks to get them into our orbit, because we just want people to know about what we do, Browns Film Breakdown. And if you're on the podcast side, 5 stars, written review greatly, greatly helps. So having said all that, I wanted to do one thing before we get to our time with Jared, which is talk about the performance pay escalators, which is a big thing for guys taken in rounds, 2 through 7, right? The first round picks have a lot of opportunity tied to their situation. Obviously, the fifth year, all that stuff that they get, and obviously a nice amount of money in their guarantees. But those guys who are not in the first round have some tricky stuff they try to navigate. And if you're a huge performer, not even huge necessarily, but a consistent performer, you do get some opportunities to see a pay raise, right? So there's levels 1, 2, and 3 in this whole operation of the performance pay escalators that get guys a little bit more money in their pockets. So on the level 1 variety, guys taken in 3 through 7 just have to play 35% of snaps in 2 of their first 3 seasons to get a pay raise by year 4, right? Which is a nice end of your contract, rookie contract bump up. It can be significant for some of these guys, right? So that's a nice thing. And if you're a second round pick, you have a different threshold, which is 60%. But again, nice to get that contract bump. Takes your base salary for the final year of the contract to the original round tender number, which is like 3.6 million. Level 2 is more open for the second round pick. So rounds 2 through 7, you get 55% of the team snaps in all 3 seasons. So you got to have 55% or more. You're a big contributor for all 3 seasons. You earn that level 2, which puts you in a different tier financially, slightly. It gets you that same amount of tender money, which is at 3.6, which also gets you a little bit more, which is 250,000. Put your base up to 3.8. So level 1, try to hit that. Level 2, a little bit more. But if you get to level 3, which is those players rounds 2 through 7 nominated to the Pro Bowl on the original ballot, not one of the 16 alternate quarterbacks or something like that. Got to be on the original ballot. If you get that in any of your first 3 seasons, you get a big upgrade, which is a second round restricted free agent tender amount, which is like 5.8 million. So wanted to lay those out. A lot of level 1 guys the Browns have opportunities for this year. 3 guys in particular from the 23 draft. Cedric Tillman, who played 35% or more snaps in all 3 seasons. All right. A lot of snaps late in his rookie season. We know what he did last year before the concussions, in the 24 season before the concussions, and then obviously played a lot of snaps throughout the early and middle portions of last year. So 49%, 37%, 48% of snaps. So he'll go up pretty significantly in the amount as a third round pick. He was set to make about 1.46 million, and it jumps him now to 3.6 million. So, I mean, listen, that's a nice increase of like $2.15 million for a guy, right? DeJuan Jones, same thing, played a lot in his rookie year in 23, 58% of the team's 1,240 snaps, then played 43% in 24 before the late season injury. Now, past year, he obviously did not get to that. I mean, he was like, after his rookie year I would imagine if he didn't get hurt at all, he would have been on track to get the 55% all 3 years, but obviously different years of injuries, different timing of injuries. But it takes him because he elected, I think in the 4th round was when DeJuan was selected. So he goes from 1.14 million up to 3.06, or 3.6, excuse me. So 2.46 million for him. Luke Whippler misses, hurt all of 2024, barely played his rookie year in 23, and then late season snaps last year, so he won't get anything. He would have had to like make the Pro Bowl last year after his first 2 years were not at that 35%. One of the two would have needed one of the two to be at 35%, so he doesn't get there. Isaiah McGuire does. His rookie year, he only played 9% of snaps, but 44% of snaps last year. Well, close to that, 39% of snaps. So 43% of snaps in 2024, and then last year splitting time with Alex Wright, right around 39%. So he gets there, takes him up from 1.14 million to 3.6 million, which is deserved. He's played good football. He's been a nice part of this thing. So always accounted for in the cap. You have about 7 million and some change added to the team's cap because of those increases to base salary. And the Browns know this. They're, capologists and all of this stuff. They have all this figured out. They knew the second these guys hit the 35% threshold and the amount of years they do it, right? As for next year, there's not a first-round pick, obviously. This is their 24 class. So it's Mike Hall, which is their first meaningful second-round pick in a while. Now, Mike had a lot of snaps his first year. He did not, as we know, last year. So we'll see if he gets to that number this year. That would put him in to the category of a level 1, which would increase his money. Malachi Corley comes down to how much he played his first year with the Jets. I have not looked at that. He would need to play a really bigger wide receiver role this year to get to 35%. I don't think that's going to happen for him, but never know. Zach Zinter, not enough snaps his first 2 years. Jamari Thrash, not enough either. Bookie Watson, barely any at all. And then Miles Harden is interesting. I know he would have played 35% last season. So I think he might be the only one because I don't know how many Mike Hall played in his first year. He's the only one I feel really good about if he has another big year to get to that threshold. Could Mike Hall have an opportunity to make a Pro Bowl? That's never out of the question. He's got the talent to explode and have a great year. But Miles Harden's played a decent amount of snaps, so obviously we'll have a chance there, for that opportunity. I could be misremembering how many snaps Mike Hall, because of suspensions, his first year played. So I might be wrong. Mike Hall might have 0 for 2 and have to have a Pro Bowl year out of nowhere this year, which will be obviously very challenging for him at that position. So he might not be in line, because like I said, that suspension his first year probably limited things before he caught on. But Miles Harden is one in that group that is, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I've kind of floated around that I would like the Browns to upgrade nickel. I'd like the Browns to upgrade maybe a safety, and that would put a strain on Miles Harden's ability to collect this. But obviously, keeping in mind that he's one of the ones eligible, we'll see. Right. So there you go. Those are your performance pay escalators. And we do know that based on this class the Browns have here, that Quinshon Judkins will certainly be a guy at the forefront of that. We know Harold Fannin will. We know Carson Schlesinger will. We'll be busier with this later on down the line. But for now, we cover who they have. And those are the 3 this year that get it in a lighter group next year. Right. Now, time with Jared. I think, 15 minutes or so spent with him. He's in Radio Row. It's a little noisy. Audio's not perfect. Video's a little sort of spotty here and there, but it's good information, good insight. He wrote an article I'll put in the description of this podcast bio write-up that you can go directly to that. Just some good insights from his early time. He's going to get stuff throughout the weekend. He'll be there talking, meeting with people. So make sure you check that out. Click the link. But for now, we got some good insights from him about process there, things he's hearing, bigger pieces from Todd Monken and his opinion as well. So yeah, let's get over that with Jared right now. All right, it's Combine Week. Well, Combine Week and weekend. And when that comes, I always try to get with Jared Mueller because Jared does a great job covering it. He lives in Indy during this time, about as rich in conversation as anybody you'll find there. If you've covered or been on this pod, Jared has many times. If you followed his work, I know you have, you know that he does a great job of networking, getting with folks, getting just some groundwork laid on things going on around Browns off. It's kind of the kickoff, right, of Browns off season. So Jared's done a great job. He's on Radio Row. We got a few minutes of his time. I wanted to talk to you, Jared, at the start here about the best food consumed so far.
The unfortunate. Well, yeah. Last night I had a stuffed avocado with stuff with like tuna and some other stuff. But tonight is Meatapalooza, which is Fogo de Chao, and there's going to be a competition between a couple tables of NFL media people to see who can eat the most meat. And I'm going to lose, but I'm going to go down fighting.
It's going to taste good. That's for sure. It's going to taste good.
Exactly.
So listen, what I want to get into a little bit more is we really don't need to discuss Andrew Berry because he's almost formulaic. How did you feel about Todd Monken's time? Did anything strike you from his time spent with media as different? I mean, obviously a very different person than Kevin, but just kind of very candid, it felt like, about Shedeur Sanders and some other topics. So I wanted to open it up for anything you thought was noteworthy from his time with media for the first time as a head coach.
I think it was Shedor's. A lot of the interesting thing is that he really does like a lot about him as a quarterback, which I think is going to be tough at times because that means he's going to have to accept some of the negative, the interceptions, those kind of things. But he likes his playmaking ability. You can tell he's really looked at the improved stuff later in the season when it came to pocket play, which wasn't perfect, obviously, throughout the year. That really stood out to me. His bluntness, the fact that he just loves football. There's some things videos I put up and that are up on Dogs by Nature that just the guy cares about football and he's blessed to be in the position he's in, and he really appreciates that. So just a little bit of a different kind of presentation, but also just a bluntness about what he's enjoying, what he likes, and who he is.
I would say the way I've looked at this is from a personal standpoint. Todd is probably like if you got the best version of what you thought you were getting with Freddie Kitchens. Like you thought you were getting a guy who really understood offense, how to tailor it for, at that time, Baker Mayfield, but could get out in front of an organization, lead an organization, but also has got some of that good old boy nature attitude, like wearing a hoodie and a Nike hat to these sorts of things. Just very grounded. I mean, he's got a Twitter account. There's just like some stuff about him that's different than some of these head coaches who get a little buttoned up. But I've kind of left myself thinking he feels like if you thought, like almost really genuinely what you thought you were getting with Freddie, but you kind of figured out along the line that there was just an element of the big role that Freddie couldn't handle. We'll see if Todd can do that, but there's just the parts of the togetherness, the collectiveness that Freddie struggled with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually have compared him to Greg Williams in a presentation style, right? He's just going to say it, and it's going to sound very football-y. But he's also kind of what you hope Kevin Stefanski was, which was offensive-minded, data-driven, want to be explosive, want to make things difficult on the defense. So Freddie Kitchens is obviously a really interesting piece of our Browns story, right? But there's a lot of those, the Rob Chijinskis of the world and, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I like the idea of, Todd Monken being a professional version of Freddie Kitchens.
Okay, let me ask you this. Not necessarily the Brown stuff that you're gathering, talking to, laying groundwork. You wrote an article, which is going to be linked in the bio of this podcast, Dogs by Nature, where Jared takes you through some of the early things he's hearing. They're not on the field yet. Obviously, everybody is there today. We're talking midday Wednesday here. So there's a lot of back channeling going on, a lot of private meetings, players finally kind of getting out in front of the microphone a little bit to talk to the press. But again, none of the data is going on because they don't get on the field till tomorrow. That will run through the weekend into early next week. But I just want to ask broad, like, does it feel like there's a big topic? Like, is over the years, it was like Bryce Young, not necessarily, or like his weight, or there's just like always been these elements, or how, guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't show up at all for this event. Is there any of that big picture buzz going on around there?
It's actually kind of the opposite of the word buzz. It's this idea that there's just not a lot of that upside, right? You get less and less kind of underclassmen, those kind of things. And so there's really more of a conversation about what is NIL doing? What are we actually going to see? And how much is that going to push up underclassmen? And how much do NFL staffs have to start to understand what a player is versus projection being kind of the primary goal of the NFL draft?
All right, let me ask you another question, bridging off of guys getting in front of the microphone. Did you, I don't want to speak for what you have or haven't been able to do today, but if you got in front of some of the prospects, obviously the Browns being 6, you kind of got to entertain. They could take pretty much every player out there except for Fernando. So I would imagine you spent some time. Is there anybody so far kind of impressing you? Times with me, maybe the Buckeye guys who got up in front. I saw Sonny Styles and Arvell out there today. And I know not every position has come through, but again, I just kind of wanted to open it to you for some broad stuff about being impressed by early in the week here.
Yeah, both of the Buckeyes really are kind of the two pieces of the puzzle right now. So for Sonny Styles coming out of really nowhere to be a top 5 pick, and there are some people, some analysts here who think he's top 2 in this draft. I think that's really interesting. And then watching Arvell Reese talk about who he is and how he plays the game, and maybe even a little bit about kind of how he was used in the first half of the season, the second half of the season, has been really interesting to the point. And obviously, this is not what we expect the Browns to do. But the idea of Arvell Reese lining up next to Carson Schlesinger as the Browns linebacker core behind that defensive line has some people wondering, would Todd Monken say, hey, you know what? I got the offense, and we've got picks. We've got 24. We've got that second round pick. We got all the other stuff. What if we make our defense impossible with Arvell Reese kind of next to Carson Schlesinger? So they've been really fun. I think the other interesting thing, though, is I'm not sure we're going to see a single interesting thing said by someone who's going to be drafted in the top 3 rounds. And that continues to be less and less every year, where you're just not getting even some of the fun stuff. You're just getting much less of that every year.
It feels like these guys are getting trained up better than ever. I mean, the whole process is very like agent buttoned up. They're putting you through like every piece of what you're going to get asked. I mean, I know that the Ohio State guys talked about how vital Matt Patricia was to them getting prepared for this, having like, that experience in the private interviews and things like that. I am fascinated with it. And I will say, I broke down more of what Mike Rutenberg's done defensively, his secondary play. Again, I'm not saying Arvell Reese is happening. I'm not even saying defense is happening, but I think if they are going to trade down, which is, you got to have a team want to come up in this draft, first of all. And that's doesn't seem to be the overwhelming thing, especially around pick 6. Pick 2 is different. Pick 6 is a little trickier. It does only take one team, though. If somebody wants to come up and you move down, I think Kyle Hamilton went 14th. Like, there are going to be guys that fall. And then if you do get into a range of like, this is too good to pass up, maybe pick 12. I think that's Dallas, I think, who doesn't usually move up, but it's just a hypothetical. I do think you could get into the world of like some of these elite defensive guys have kind of pushed into a spot. And I'm just saying, man, the safeties are going to need to be better this year. If what I'm watching is consistent with what he's going to bring, I am a little concerned about safety play. I'm putting that out there kind of loosely about whether they can fit into a lot of the gadget stuff Rutenberg wants to do. Having said that, so that's like where I think you can't eliminate it. You're talking about Arvell Reese. Like, you can't eliminate these guys because if they do move back to 9, 10, 11, there's always a possibility. Some teams don't love the tweener nature of Arvell and think he's not maybe a top end. Plus, Sonny Styles could fall to the, into the 20s. You never know where these guys go. And so much of this stuff's getting done in the early portions. I know there's a heightened sense of Ty Simpson buzz. Are you noticing any of that where he's going to throw? There are people, Todd McShay, doing his like, hey man, before this guy was hurt, he was trending in a really great direction. Have you smelled any of that going on around there?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Ty Simpson is, remember if you have ever met Sean McVay, you might get a head coaching job. Well, when all of a sudden Ty Simpson is connected to the Los Angeles Rams, all of a sudden Ty Simpson is more interesting to a lot of, at least media, right? We're not going to pretend like teams are that reactionary, but when you think Sean McVay wants him to be his Matthew Stafford replacement, you might start looking at that tape a little bit differently. So Ty Simpson, Drew Aller, those are really the 2 names of like, these guys could be higher than you think they should be, physical gifts, all of that kind of stuff. So I would be shocked at this point in time that Ty Simpson's available even at the 24th pick, which is not really where I have him evaluated based on his college film, his age, some of those kind of physical limitations, dealing with pocket pressure, all of that kind of stuff. But we're at a point where Drew Aller may not make it to middle of the second round, which at one point in time I was thinking 5th round. Yeah, middle of the second round is about where I might bet a little bit of money at this point in time on Drew Aller, as long as obviously his medicals play out well.
Yeah, I think he's going to throw too. So those guys both tentatively plan to throw. Not that throwing is going to decide anything for them this weekend, but it is a step in continuing to impress as the QB2 world or whatever you want to call it is pretty wide open, according to some folks. Okay. I don't want to speak for everything you wrote, Jared. I want people to go to your page and I want them to read this over the course of the weekend. But I would say maybe framing this as the three most interesting things you've heard is probably the fair way to go about it. And then, like I said, if you guys want more of this, Jared's doing a ton of legwork. He's constantly talking over the course of this weekend to the weekend, and I'm sure he'll have more. And you're going to go, like I said, follow the link, go to Dogs by Nature, bookmark it, and get ready to go there this weekend. But I wanted to throw it open for anything you've heard that matters that you want to hit on with us.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing is just kind of where it seems like Andrew Berry is kind of focused when it comes to trades. And so I always talk about Andrew Berry as if you ever heard that he was interested in a player, he's probably still interested in that player, right? We saw with Jadeveon Clowney, Tack McKinley, a variety of other players, Jerry Jeudy. Once he likes a player, he likes a player. And so that player, one of them is Chris Olave. And I think that's the big name. A lot of people are excited about him. There was conversation between the Saints and the Browns during the trade deadline last year, and those conversations have continued this year. And so I think he's a really interesting player for the Browns, young, long term. Again, a Jerry Jeudy, not type of player, but kind of trade would kind of look like that. Going to be a lot more. It's not going to be a fifth and a sixth round pick. But I think that's one is just he seems very focused on wide receiver and interior offensive line as two areas that he really wants to make sure that he's addressing. And so that's one of the things that has really stood out to me about kind of what we're hearing around. And the second is, and this goes with analytics a lot, but you're going to not see those older guys. You're not going to see the 29, 30, 31-year olds getting more than $2-3 million. They're just not at a point for that. And so a lot of those guys that they've gone for, even like the Malik Collins, which, turned out pretty well this year, you're probably not going to see those kind of deals happening at this point in time.
Yeah, maybe some of the bigger swings. Do you expect them to go after Rasheed Walker? That's been a lot of buzz. Malik Willis, where's your early impression on those? I know you're not going to get that answer there, but you could probably just get a feel for what you think, whether it's genuine or not.
Yeah, I think Walker, there is some legitimate interest. It seems like Tyler Linderbaugh is who they would like to get if they're going to spend a lot of money on the offensive line. They're just going to have a lot of competition, and it all is connected to basically the Ravens. So it's the Ravens, it's the Browns, and it's both Harbaughs. Are the four teams that I've been told are looking in the $24 to $25 million range for Tyler Linderbaugh. I'm just not sure they're going to go that far, especially if you can get Walker at a little bit of a lower rate at a more important position. I thought it was telling that Andrew Berry talked about DeJuan Jones as if he's going to be the right tackle or he's going to be factored in this year. He's not somebody I'm going to trust based on his injury history and some of the discipline stuff. But that was a little bit telling to me that if they're trusting DeJuan over here, will they spend the money there or take the draft pick capital for that? But I think Walker interest, Linderbaum interest is real at this point in time. Willis, I really haven't heard that. From what I understand, both Monken and Berry want to be a little bit more cautious by how they spend their one big quarterback opportunity.
Yeah, let me put it this way. What do you have coming up? So people that are like, how is this all work? So you go to kind of get out, do some dinner with friends, people connections, and then kind of walk us through like what's in the next few days. Is guys on the field, like what's coming up?
Yeah, so tonight we're going to go eat a bunch of meat. And then afterwards, it's an interesting dance here where I'm talking to this agent, I'm talking to this person connected to some team, whether it's the Browns or others. I'm talking to a media member who might have heard something. And then you play a game of telephone, which is a really fun process of saying, hey, I heard this. What have you heard? And then you work your way through that process to see what information really has enough legitimacy, enough legs that when I go to an agent of a player or I go to a staff member of a certain team, I know the answer I'm getting tells me we're on the right track or we're not on the right track.
Yeah.
And so
Nobody's
that's a
gonna
lot
just
of
say it out loud, right? It's just you got to connect those dots. Yeah.
Yeah, and it helps that you talk. I'm going to do a lot of talking. You know me. My wife knows me. I'm going to do a lot of talking. Period. But it helps. I love people, and so that's a lot of the real late evening stuff. I didn't do that last night. I got a nap coming in right after this, actually. And then tomorrow morning we get up. We start interviewing players at 8 a.m. We do that basically until a little bit after lunch. we get our food, we get a nap, and then we head right over to Lucas Oil Stadium. Right after Lucas Oil, we're going to get dinner at 9 o'clock at night, whatever that is. And we do it all over again. So that's where we're going to roll.
Love it, man. Listen, I will try to maybe get with Jared at the end of this and see what bigger players standout stuff he caught with, but to get him early here, and again, the link in the bio of this podcast will take you directly to his work, and that will continue, and stay tuned to that. So Jared, as always, buddy, we appreciate your time.
Good to see you, buddy.
All right, big thanks to everybody for stopping by, being here. Thanks to Jared for taking time out of his combine journey to hang out with us and give us some of his insights. And again, you can click the link in the bio and read directly from what he wrote up. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today. I want to thank you again for being a part of Browns Film Breakdown, or encourage you to come join us if you are not currently. I think it, again, will enhance your Browns fandom experience, and some great stuff recently on Mike Rutenberg's defense, these free agency profiles, and we're about to crack into some draft film I think you guys want to see, including an everyday posting of a draft prospect of interest. Started with Chandler Rivers of Duke yesterday in the chat. That was fun. It's a good player there. So, guys, again, thanks for being here and coming to brownsfilmbreakdown.com. Continue to do so, and I will catch you guys on Friday. Until then, go Browns.